Johnna.
Hi, Kathy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good. You're welcome.
So today we're going to talk about some herbs. We're
All
going to
right.
learn some ways to use some herbs and make some spice in our life a little bit. So,
Okay. Sounds good to me.
all right, let's get started with my first slide there. Just introduce myself. Everybody knows my name is Johnna, and I am a program assistant through the Ohio SNAP Ed program employed by Ohio State University in the Ross County Extension Office. And as I'd said, today we're going to talk about some veggies and some herbs. I don't know about y'all, but my garden is going crazy right now. So I'm going to use a few things out of my garden, a few things that I had on hand, and just show you some ways to get some more flavor into a couple of dishes that you can kind of cut the salt down a little bit. Then always my little plug here, the celebrateyourplate.org, which is our SNAP Ed website. Go there. I think one of the recipes I'm using today is from there, and I always get a lot of good suggestions off of there. And then, of course, the myplate.gov for the anything nutrition related. Go there and check that out. So if you want to go ahead and switch over, Kathy, we'll get started with our first recipe today, which is the herbed potato salad. And this is not the traditional mayonnaise-based potato salad. It's a lighter version. And it's going to call for some red potatoes, some light Italian dressing, a little bit of spicy brown mustard, some fresh chopped parsley, some salt, some black pepper, some red bell pepper, some green bell pepper, and some green onions. And of course, as usual, I've made some adaptations to this because I never have everything the recipe calls for. That's just kind of my trademark. So let me get turned around here and we'll get started. Now, I've already cooked up my potatoes because when you're making any kind of potato salad, you got to cook them up and cool them down so you can cut them up. And I actually just bought the little bag of the red potatoes. Normally, I'd have the large ones and cut them up, but this is just what was quick to grab when I was in the store, and I've got plenty of potatoes growing in the garden, so I didn't want to buy a lot of potatoes to have them on hand. So I cut these up and quartered them up. Now, a trick when you're boiling or cooking potatoes for a potato salad, you don't want to cook them until they're soft to the touch, because if you do, then they're going to get mushy in your salad. So I only boiled these. And another trick, too, is to make sure you put them into the boiling water. Don't put it in the cold water and cook it up. That's another reason they might get a little soft on you. But I only cooked these for probably about 13 to 14 minutes, actually. I think I had the timer set for 15. I took them off just a little early. And they're just about the perfect consistency. If you cook them too long, like I said, they're going to get mushy on you. So there's the red potatoes, and that's how I cook them up. Now, as I said, it's going to just be some light Italian dressing, and I've already got a half a cup. No, I don't have half a cup here. I got a quarter cup here. Measured out. Let me put the rest of it in here. And this is just any bottled dressing that you got on hand. Boy, that was luck, guys. Just exactly 1/2 cup in that bottle before it went dry. Okay, so I got that sitting there, and then I'm going to put in, it calls for some spicy brown mustard. Well, I didn't have spicy brown mustard. I got yellow mustard. So I got online and looked to see, well, what do I have to add to mustard to make it spicy? Obviously, a little bit of cayenne, and this is my cayenne that I grow in the garden and dry and then cut it up myself. So it is really hot. So I'm just going to put just a pinch in there, not a whole lot. And then I'm going to whisk it together with my little whisk here. And then I'm going to take my spatula, what do I do with it? And I'm going to just slide this down into this dressing. Get all that goodness out of there. And I know I probably could have just put the mustard in and then put the cayenne in it too. Now, I also said you could put some turmeric or a little bit of cumin in that too to give it that spicy flavor. And I know I could have put it directly in there, but I didn't. I just wanted to show you guys how to mix it together. And then I'm going to put in, I've got some parsley that I picked out of my garden here. I need about, a tablespoon of fresh parsley. So I'm just going to cut the stem off of there and then pull these big stems out. You don't want any big chunks of the stem in your dressing. And that smells good. And then I'm just going to take my knife after I get this pulled apart, and I'm just going to chop through this. You also can do this with a pair of kitchen shears, which is, just as easy. I just happen to have a knife laying here. And you just want to keep bunching it up. Watch your fingers. You don't want to cut your fingernails off. And you want to cut this up so it's pretty small pieces, because it's going to be, part of the dressing. But then again, it's going to be in a salad, so you can leave some chunks in there. But parsley, when it's in big chunks, sometimes can tend to be a little bitter. So you want the flavor in there, but you don't want big chunks of it in there. You don't bite into a big bitter piece of parsley. Okay, let me get that minced up just a little bit more. Gosh, that smells good. My herb bed is doing great right now. I've got parsley, I've got sage, I've got thyme and rosemary and oregano, and my cilantro didn't do so well. But I've got a lot of good fresh herbs coming on, and I'll take those this fall and cut them down and hang them up to dry, and then I will put them into bottles, which I'll show you here in a second. Okay, so there's about a tablespoon of the parsley. And I'm going to need this again for here in a minute. So I'm just going to slide that to the side of my cutting board. And then I'm going to put in, it calls for garlic salt. Well, I don't have garlic salt. So I'm going to do about a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. And about a half a teaspoon of salt. And that should make garlic salt. All right, and then it calls for, I'm making a lot of noise there, aren't I? Quarter teaspoon of ground black pepper. And that pretty much makes up our dressing for this potato salad. So I'm just going to whisk that together and get all the seasoning mixed together. Now, be careful when you are buying the bottled Italian dressings, because sometimes you'll get a lot of extra seasoning in there and you don't want to have too many spices in or too many herbs in, because it will overtake the flavor of your dressing. All right, so there's that. Now I've got a red pepper here that I'm going to chop up. I need half a cup of red pepper, and I've already chopped up my bell pepper, my green bell pepper, and my onion over there. So usually about a half of a pepper equals out to about a half cup, depending on what size your pepper is. This is pretty large, so I guarantee you this one's going to be enough. And you want to cut these up into not, minced, but kind of small pieces, because you don't want your pepper to overpower your potatoes. So probably about 1/4 inch cubes. All right, so there's that. I'm just going to add that to my cup here with the rest of my veggies. I got my green bell pepper in there, and I got my onion. Now I called for, I didn't quite get that cut through, did I? Diced green onions. I didn't have any. To be honest with you, I'm not a fan of green onions. So as I tell you guys all the time, use what your family's going to like. I like the tartness of the regular white onions, so I normally will use that. All right, so now I've got my potatoes cut up, and I'm going to take my dressing here, and I'm going to pour it over these potatoes. Now you got to kind of baby the potatoes a little bit, because they will tend to break up if you get too rough with them. So I'm going to pour the dressing over top of that. Scrape all that out of there. And then just gently toss to get that dressing clear through your potatoes. Look how pretty that is. Parsley's going to come up in there. And you can actually make your own Italian dressing as well. Go ahead and throw my rest of my veggies in there just by using equal parts of oil. I use olive oil for just about everything, or you can use canola oil or vegetable oil. And then also throwing in equal parts of vinegar with that, and make your own Italian dressing, and use your own herbs to season that up. I cheated today and used the bottle dressing because I had just that. You saw that little bit I had, so I want to use that up. And now, there we go. That's how quick and easy that was to put that together. So I'm going to set this in the refrigerator and let it blend together. You want those herbs. When the herbs sit in the oil, they tend to bring out the flavor a little bit. So you set that in the refrigerator for about, half an hour, 45 minutes, and it's going to be a nice, rich flavor on those potatoes, okay? So let me set this in the refrigerator real quick. and then we'll get busy making our dip that we're going to make to go with our veggies, okay? So our other recipe is a garlicky herb dip. And this is just really super quick and easy to throw together, and this is nice to have in the refrigerator with some cut up vegetables to encourage your family to eat more vegetables as far as a snack. And all this is a cup of plain yogurt, some more of that parsley chopped up, a couple cloves of garlic, either minced up. I'm going to use my cheater garlic like I always use, and then some dried basil, some dried oregano, some dried thyme, and a little bit of salt and pepper. Real simple ingredients that you usually are going to have around the house, so not too hard to mix that together. So let me start off with, get my bowl here, and I've already got my yogurt measured out. This is a cup of just plain low-fat yogurt. This is not a Greek yogurt. If you want a thicker, creamier dip, you might want to go with a Greek yogurt, but you're also going to have a stronger flavor. So, pick your poison, whichever one you like best. The plain yogurt's got a nice tart flavor to it, but the Greek yogurt's just a little tartar than that. And then, let me get the right recipe. I'm still making the potato salad. I'm going to add in about a half cup of that parsley. So let me get these pepper seeds around my way here. And then we're going to just do some more parsley, just like we did before for the potato salad. Cut these stems off of here. And I'm just going to run the knife through it. And about a half a cup of this parsley is going to go into this dip. If you don't like parsley, or if you have maybe some chives on hand, you could use cilantro. You can use, if you don't have anything like this, you could use some spinach leaves chopped up in here would be good. Anything dark green where you're going to get that nice, rich flavor in your dip is going to make it really nice. And it makes it pretty too, having that dark green color in there. Oh, I love the smell of this parsley, guys. All right, so get that stem out of there. All right, so I'm going to throw this in the bowl. That's about, probably about a half cup. We're going to say it is. The nice thing about parsley too, you can grow it year-round in a windowsill. Don't have to worry about having an outdoor garden. You can buy those little kits and just put it in if you have a nice morning sun window coming in, you can put it in the window and have parsley year-round. You can do that pretty much with any herbs as well. And then we're going to add in, okay, so I've got my basil here, and this is store-bought basil here. I didn't grow this. I've got some growing now, but I didn't have it growing when I needed it. I bought this. Okay, so there's a teaspoon of basil, and then a teaspoon of dried oregano. This is, you can see, I saved my plastic bottles and mark them. I grew this last year, so I'm going to put in a teaspoon of my dried oregano. Smells good. And then a half teaspoon of whole ground thyme, which, again, I've recycled my bottles. I try to do my best for the environment. Okay, so there's my thyme in there. And then I need the rosemary right now, a little bit, a quarter teaspoon of black pepper. And a quarter teaspoon of salt. Now these are the ingredients that these recipes call for, but you can always add in other herbs and spices. Your family, you know what they'll like and what they won't like, so you can always just do that. Okay, so there we go. I got this all mixed together. And this is going to be just like the potato salad. You're going to stick this in the refrigerator, and it's going to blend together. You're going to have those nice herbs in there, blending all together, giving that nice fresh flavor. And this is good with veggies. This would be good with some, maybe some tortilla chips. This would be good actually too as a dressing for maybe like some tuna salad or something like that. You don't have to just use it for a dip. You can use it for any kind of purpose that way. And then I've just got a little plate here that I've already cut up some carrots and some zucchini and some celery. And you set it right there, and it's ready to serve. Look at there, guys. Okay, Kathy, if you want to go ahead and pop up, I got one little slide I want to share with you guys this evening about ways to use herbs and spices, fresh, dried, and ground, because sometimes it can get a little confusing about, okay, I don't have any, the recipe's calling for fresh parsley. I don't have fresh parsley. I got dried parsley. Can I use that? You can. You just have to kind of know the formula of what you're going to use and how much to use. So if a recipe calls for fresh herbs and all you have are dried, here are some approximate amounts of different forms of herbs equivalent to each other. So 1 tablespoon of finely cut fresh herbs, like that 1 tablespoon of parsley that I cut up, would be equal to 1 teaspoon of dried parsley. So 1 to 1. So if it's fresh, it's a tablespoon. If it's dried, it's a teaspoon. And then ground, which is another form, that's going to be like it's ground into a powder. You're going to use 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon. And I always caution everybody, when you're in the store and you're buying herbs, really make sure you're looking at the description on your bottles, your cans, however you're buying them, because if you're going to use a ground herb, you're going to be getting a lot of flavor out of that 1/4 teaspoon. So 1/4 teaspoon of some ground herbs up to no more than 1/2 teaspoon is equal to a tablespoon of fresh. So really be careful that you're reading the description. If it says ground or dried or crumbled or leaves, if that ground, it says ground, you know you're going to be getting way more herb flavor per the volume of it. So then some general rules about when you're just trying to season without a recipe. So begin with like 1/4 teaspoon of most ground spices, just like I said, and then work up. You don't want it to, like, I think this is talking about making rubs. So if you're making a rub for, say you're going to make some chops or something out on, pork chops out on the grill, you don't want to use a whole teaspoon of, say, sage or something. You want to start out with like 1/4 teaspoon, and if it doesn't taste like it's strong enough, then you work your way up. So if you have 4 servings, you're going to start out with 4 teaspoons, 1/4 of a teaspoon for ground. You're going to start out with 1 teaspoon of crumbled dried, and you're going to start off with a tablespoon of fresh herbs for 4 servings of whatever you're making. Then if you have a pound of meat, the same way. Start off with 1/4 teaspoon of the ground, a teaspoon of the crumbled dried, or a tablespoon of the fresh herbs. And then a pint or 2 cups or a soup of sauce. So if you're making like a barbecue sauce and you're going to put some cayenne in it, you're going to want to put in 1/4 teaspoon to start off with that, because you can always work up. You can always put more in, but you can't take more out. So like cutting your hair, once you cut it off, it's gone. So make sure you start off small and work your way up to it. And then it mentions cayenne to start off with 1/8 of a teaspoon. Those strong flavors like the cayenne and the garlic powder, start off with just a little bit and work your way up, because as I said, you can't take it out once it's in there. There is the trick with salt. If you get too much salt in there, you can put a potato like in your soup and it will take some of the salty flavor out of it, but you can never get it all out of there. And then red pepper intensifies as you're cooking it. So add small increments if you're using any type of red pepper, because it'll start out not tasting hot, and the more you cook it, the hotter it will get. So be really careful when you're using really strong peppers like that. And then the last little thing there is when you're doubling a recipe, don't automatically double the spices and herbs that it calls for. So if you're making a recipe and it calls for 1/2 teaspoon, don't automatically go to a teaspoon, because herbs can really come on strong as you cook them. So start out with a small amount and work your way up, and increase by 1 to 1.5 times as you go up. So if it calls for 1/2 teaspoon, maybe try 3/4 of a teaspoon to double it, but never automatically just double it right off the bat. And taste it. Keep tasting as you're seasoning. That way you'll be able to get an idea of what it's going to taste like. Now, like I put that salad and that dip in the refrigerator to let it blend, so the taste will go clear through the recipe, and it will get a little stronger as it sets in there. So you might want to, my husband makes a regular, the mayonnaise-based potato salad, and he always makes it the day before and lets it set overnight, and then taste it before we take it to an event, because those herbs and those spices that he put in there will blend through that dressing overnight, and you may not need that much. You may not think it tastes very good that when you first put it together, but give it a little bit of time to marinate. Give it a chance to come back up to its full flavor. All right, Kathy. Short and sweet tonight, guys. Really quick recipes. really liked for this heat that we're going through. So it's a nice side dish. I'm actually going to throw a couple pieces of fish on the grill, and we're going to have potato salad and then dip with it. That's going to be our dinner tonight. So
That sounds good.
yeah,
It does. That
and
potato salad, it looked good. I thought
it's
that was a different take
yeah.
on it, you know.
You could actually turn that into, I mean, you could put different seasonings in there and turn it into like a German potato salad if you ever had that, by putting maybe a little bit of sage and maybe some caraway seeds in there.
Right.
You take spices and herbs and change whatever group you want to go to. You can give it a more Hispanic flair with the hot peppers. This was more of an Italian type seasoning, so you're going to have that. And I did actually, I'm glad I said that. I did actually include there should be a recipe in the chat for an Italian seasoning mix. And this is just a really quick thing. Guys, check it out. All it is equal parts of basil, oregano, rosemary, and thyme. And I suggest anybody, I know sometimes I buy these little cans of spices, and I'm never going to use all of that. So if you can take these recipes like this, and you can find some of these on those websites I always promote, make them up into little glass bottles and give them as stocking stuffers at Christmas. Give them as a package decoration. You can always use as spices, give them as gifts to somebody as a blend. You know, make a little fancy little tag on it, and it's a nice thing to do, and you don't have the spices sitting in your pantry growing old. So it's a little giving thing to do.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I would have never thought of that, and I would love to get something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you know, a lot of times too, if you have family members, because I know I'm just cooking for a couple people. Sometimes I can buy up spices and seasonings, and 5 or 6 years go by, and I have to throw them away because they don't really go bad. They just lose their flavor.
Right.
So if you've got a group of family members, go together, buy a bunch of them up, save your little jars, split them up 4 or 5 ways, however many people you got, and that way you're all going to have fresh herbs and spices all the time.
Right.
It's a real easy way to kind of co-op them.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting, and I learned a lot tonight.
Well, thank you. Every now and then I hit it.
About the doubling, I would have automatically doubled.
Yeah, I've made that mistake before. If you double it, you sometimes, especially if it's a strong herb or spice, you can really ruin a dish by doing that. Start off in small and work your way up.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I guess we will see you next week.
You will. Next week is. Here I am again. You think I would learn by now and start checking to see what I'm doing next week? I don't have a clue.
That's
I'll be surprised everybody else. So
yes.
But we'll have a good time no matter what.
Yes, we will.
All right. Any questions, guys? Put them in the chat, and I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody has. Okay. See y'all later.
All right. Bye, everyone.